Truth Seeker and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark sided stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Truth Seeker. We're back with another exciting episode of the Truth Seeker podcast. I want to say peace and blessings to everyone who's watching this live, everyone hanging out with us in the chat rooms right now over on YouTube. You guys are awesome. So tonight's show, I've been looking forward to it for a while. We've been trying to make this happen for a couple months now. Good friend of mine who, when I first got back into podcasting, this is like, I want to say 2012, 2013, the first show that I did on my podcast, it was entitled The Awakening Podcast. The first guest that I had was Danny Wilten, and so he joined me for the first episode. And it's been several years now, so when it comes to research, when it's come to the topic matter that we're going to be discussing tonight, he's dug a lot deeper. First of all, it was deep to begin with, and some of the information and knowledge that he was bringing to the table. And now so much has happened. Some of the stuff, I've been so behind these past couple of years doing research, man. Some of the stuff's way over my head now. Someone who was, a person that everybody looked up to as far as knowledge and research and understanding. And these last couple of years, man, I've been just trying to interpret what I've already learned and put it into proper perspective. Then I go back and check on some of these other guys, Danny Wilten being one, and some of the knowledge is way over my head. So that's why we have him on tonight to go into some of this information about Orion's Nebula, which is something near and dear to my heart, and some of the other stuff he's into. But before we go into that, before we bring the guests on, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who is supporting via Patreon, because without you guys, this show wouldn't exist. You guys are what helps me make this stuff happen. So everybody who is a partner over at patreon.com/truthseeker, huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. We have a new patron who just joined the team, and this is Lionel Anderson. Lionel Anderson, the UFO contactee, my good friend. I'm actually going to be on his podcast tomorrow morning. So he has a show. I'm going to be interviewed on that tomorrow morning. So if you guys want to stick around for that, I'll be sharing the links. So patreon.com/truthseeker, you get access to all of my music, my entire collection of work. You get access to songs that aren't even out yet. So you're privileged to that. Podcasts that we haven't released that aren't public, you guys get instant access to that, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff, as you guys can see there. And so immediately following this episode, we're going to do a patron only hangout. So those of you who are watching who are patrons, be checking your email. So as soon as this episode is over, you guys will get a private link to come on and hang out and talk about whatever. So head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeeker and support for any level of giving. And you guys can come on the team and be a part of what we're building. Thank you guys so much, everybody. So without further ado, my good friend, Daniel Wilten. Daniel, welcome to the show.
How's it going, man? Are you doing okay?
I'm well, brother. And that's kind of an inside joke for those of you who don't know. But I had a parody channel where it was a guy named Brother Wayne, and I'm bringing Brother Wayne back. But it was a parody where I would just troll researchers and stuff like that, because we've all seen the exposed videos, especially Danny Wilton.
Right.
Danny Wilton has seen
Right.
his fair share, and he's done his fair share, right? So
I just don't sit tight. I fight back sometimes.
yeah, I know, right? So I had a parody channel where I would just kind of lash out at people, and it was just done as a parody, as we see people like the Vigilant Christian, who is somebody that I think everybody
Oh
knows
my
as far
God.
as making videos to expose people. So it was kind of a parody of an older version of him, maybe him when he's 65 years old. And so he goes around calling everything demonic and trolling and stuff. So he was the inspiration for that. But I did a video on Danny, and I commented on his video and posted the link. Danny checked it out, the video of Brother Wayne exposing him, and he shared it not knowing that it was me trolling. And it was just funny to read the comments and all that good stuff, man.
I thought it was hilarious.
It was, man. I was kind of depressed, man, when my channel got deleted, because I had so much comedy gold on there, man, and bringing
You
smiles to
didn't save all
people's
that
face.
stuff?
I didn't,
You didn't
man.
save all that?
I didn't.
Oh,
I
man.
didn't, man.
Old Daniel Wilton.
Daniel is a guy named Daniel Wilton on YouTube, and what he does is he calls everything evil. He calls evil good and good evil. The Word of God tells you not to follow such people. I'm bringing them back.
I tell you
man.
what, man, I've had my fair share of that stuff. I'll tell you.
I know, man. There's just
It seems like as soon as you get into study and stuff like this, for people who don't know, I guess if you share any of it with anybody, the next thing you know is, I mean, you're being called Satan worshiper and all kinds of stuff, and you know, at first it kind of bothers you. You're like, what the hell is going on? Why are people calling me this for studying this stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Mhm.
And I guess I don't know where they learned to do that, but I guess somebody told them along down the road that you're not supposed to be looking at, you know, stuff like that. Keep your head in the Bible and all that stuff. And you know, it's good to read everything, but then once you stop getting angry at them, then it just becomes funny and comical,
Yeah.
and you kind of feel sorry for them at the same time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Actually, speaking of the Vigilant Christian, man, you know what I'm saying? I personally like to talk to everybody, like from all walks of life or whatever. So I was supposed to have him on for an interview. I had a deal with him. I was going to trade out some work for him because I do graphic art. I made a deal with him. I'd do some graphic art for him, and he'd come on for an interview. And he said, okay. I made him some graphic art, and he was supposed to come on, and I didn't want to be exposing nobody, nothing like that. I just wanted to talk to him about why he's doing what he's doing, how he got there, what's working for him, those type of things, right? And so he was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an interview with a guy named Brandon Barthrop, who's a friend of mine, they did a Vice documentary on him about the Christians who were getting high off of God. And it was a huge Vice documentary. Had him on my show. And then the Vigilant Christian says he wants to come on my show and expose this guy and say why he's not of God and it's demonic and stuff.
Oh God! Have you seen the titles of his videos, man?
Yeah.
Every title of his video says someone's exposed, satanic Illuminati.
Exactly.
I mean, every single one of them, satanic Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God!
I mean, it's like you know what I'm saying, the clickbait stuff. And I remember years ago, man, when I was online, man, I would say, if I would have to guess, I'd say 2009 maybe, to where like there was only a few people doing those exposed videos, right? And they were big on YouTube, and you know what I'm saying, they were known for it. And now, you know, the whole comedic thing behind it for me with the whole Brother Wayne thing is that everybody's doing it, and everybody is an expert, so they can. You know, they watch one video on somebody, then you know what I'm saying, now they're an expert and now they can go out and expose people and do all that kind of stuff. It's kind of funny. It's kind of comical, but yet, like you said, it's sad too, you know?
Yeah, and what happens basically is that, and I don't know whether some of these people are paid or what the deal is, but
Yeah.
you know, if you're a real researcher and you get into your research and then somebody does something like that, next thing you know, you hear about it, and it's, you know, so it's okay to respond maybe once or twice and stuff like that, or maybe once in a great while, because if you never respond when someone or when people do that kind of stuff, it just makes you look like you're guilty, because it makes you look like all these people are accusing you and you're not saying anything back. So there's obviously something going on. If you were like a public figure and really large, it would make a difference, right? But
Yeah.
when you're smaller and you got these other people trying to do that, if you never stick up for yourself, then what ends up happening is it makes it look like you're guilty. So you got to stick up for yourself once in a while. The problem is
Go ahead.
that if you do it too much, then it distracts you from your research, right? Then you spend all your time trying to fight these people instead of doing what you wanted to do to begin with,
Yeah.
which is research and stuff, right? So there's a fine balance between all that kind of stuff. And the way I look at it is, I make my point. If somebody keeps harassing me, I'll make one video, make my point, and then I'll leave it alone, you know. But,
I think they're kind of, you know what I'm saying, trying to punch up to get the attention of the researchers or
Yeah.
of the people. So they say, you know, you can get 1,000 positive comments all day, and those comments are near and dear to our hearts. They help us. They motivate us to keep going. It's like a pat on the back. But that one comment, oh, Danny Wilton's a fake, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. For some reason, it sticks out to you, and so that those people know that if they dig and they dig hard enough, they can get us to respond. So early on, it was for me was like thinking that I was, I guess on the offense by being quiet and not responding because they're just begging for my attention and the attention on the platform that we've built. Like they want on your platform.
Right.
They think that they should have your platform and you shouldn't have it because you don't deserve it because your research is flawed or this and that. So they want to come on your platform and tell all of your followers, all the people who back your work, this is where you're wrong. This is where you're wrong. And I've had,
it's a real complex game. It's like a chess game, right? I mean, when you choose a time to respond, it's also good that when you're responding, you're really not responding to just that person. What you're trying to do is basically put something out that is teaching everybody something at the same time. So like whatever it may be, like I remember I got bombarded with all these flat earth people for a while. Okay. I don't know where they came from, like out of the woodworks, you know, just coming at me, you know. And so I eventually had to put all my YouTube videos on approve for the comment, because I was getting so many of these damn things.
Yeah.
So finally, after so many of them, I said I'm going to have to make a couple videos that show people where I stand on this crap, because then all these people on Facebook and everything. So what do you think about this? Because nobody wants to research anything themselves. They just want to ask you what you're doing, right?
That's what they do in church too, man. What does the pastor say about it? That's what he says. That's what I believe.
Exactly, right. No, nobody has an opinion of them, you know, from themselves or whatever. And that actually is pretty much the same everywhere. Most people's opinions don't come from themselves. Mm-hmm. They usually come from a university or a teacher or some other person. But very, very few people have sat down and actually looked at things themselves.
Yep. That's the weird thing, man. Because I got hit with the flat Earth thing as well, and I've said it before. I'll say it again. And I think it's the funny thing was the last 2 times I was supposed to have you on the show, not for any particular reason, but I was supposed to have Santos either right before you or after you. Both times we tried to make something happen. And I had Santos on the night before last, and he went into Flat Earth or whatever. And the reason I stayed away from Flat Earth is because of, and I told Santos this, the reason I stayed away from it is because I seen what it did to Santos and his following. Like somebody who's research a lot of people looked up to, syncretism, astrology, everything he was doing, and then he jumped ship with Flat Earth, and he kind of became the laughing stock of that community. And I'm like,
well, I bet he started going around calling everybody demon worshipers and
Why
Yeah, I
did he
think he
do
called
that?
me the.
I seen
I don't
that.
know. He called them demon worshippers and everything. He used to call me, what is it?
Okay, so the feud,
Masturbator par excellence,
I
and
seen
what
that.
is it? Cartoon. Yeah,
The,
it just cracks me up. I mean, where does he come up with this shit? You know,
yeah, but like,
it's just
did he
crazy.
start that or did you? Because I'm not following. I've just seen little pieces here and some of the stuff you've done. But
I've
who
always
took
had a
the first
problem.
jab?
Well, I've always had a problem with Santos because of this has probably gone on for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a history, and the history goes all the way back to when Dee and I used to do the radio show, and then so we were, I was kind of new to it all and everything like that, but I'm also a systems analyst. Okay, so in my real life, what do? I analyze stuff. I develop software, so I'm always analyzing things to the detail. And if something doesn't make sense, I recognize it pretty quick. So the first thing when I noticed is that when I was looking at all this kind of stuff, because I approached this whole Orion Nebula standpoint from not something that was pie in the sky, some kind of crap like that. I was approaching it like an analyst. I actually saw something I could analyze and I could prove, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I heard him started doing this wordplay crap, and then I noticed that this other guy, what's his name?
Cullen?
Real popular guy. Huh? No, he's a real popular guy. That's one of Santos' mentors. I forget what his name is.
Jordan Maxwell? Yeah. No.
Yes.
Jordan?
No, yeah, I think that is him.
Okay.
Anyways, they started doing that damn wordplay, and so I started looking up on YouTube other people that had done the same kind of stuff. And then I started reading about it. I was like, well, this is all bullshit. What the hell's going on here? I started reading all that stuff, and I found out it's a form of psychological mind control, because they start using words that sound the same, and they pair them with others, and it disconnects the association inside of your brain of what one thing means to another. Like so that way when people who are religious people, when you say the Son of God, now they think, oh, you're talking about the sun in the sky,
exactly.
right? But you're not, because the sun, the way that sun mean, or what it means actually, and what it was written like in Hebrew, are two different things. And then when you start digging into all of that, so you have to kind of dig, right? But most people don't dig, so they just get wowed by these things that sound the same. Mm-hmm. And so these people just make up all kinds of crap. Yeah. So him and this Truth Heresy guy and a few others. But I think on the flat earth, when I heard Santos was into the flat earth, I think I made a quick video about it, and it wasn't too much longer after that where who's the guy that does the Matrix videos? You know who does that?
I'm not sure right off.
He's really a good guy.
You're probably talking about Jordan Maxwell, right?
Yeah, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the other guy. He wears glasses. He said he was one of Manly P. Hall's best friends.
Yeah, that's Jordan Maxwell.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. With Santos, yeah, but I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about somebody else. But anyways, so I made a video saying, Santos is now looking at the whole flat earth thing, and it wasn't after that, too much longer after that, he started making all these videos and going online about me being a demon worshiper and everything like that. So I started capturing a little bit of his stuff, and I was like, this guy's gone nutball. I don't know what they did to him, but he's gone nuts. And anyways, so it was just something for a little bit, and then I realized he's totally lost it, so I just let it all go.
Yeah.
Got back into my research again.
So from their perspective, so do you think this is an art that they have studied and they pursued as a stance or like a art form to like?
You want to talk about this wordplay?
Yeah,
thing?
like the wordplay. Do you? I mean, is it just kind of blatantly obvious, or is it something that they studied? Like this is an easy way to kind of, you know what I'm saying, break down somebody's belief system.
I think it is. I think it is. In that sense, I think they studied it enough to realize what they can get away with. Mm-hmm. But I definitely know that they're not doing it thinking they really believe it.
Okay, so what about the Maritime Admiralty Law? Have you heard their discourses on that?
I don't pay attention
You
to
don't pay
stuff like
attention.
that.
You know, with the
I don't.
you know what I'm saying, the birth canal, and whenever you're born, you come through the canal, and that's where a shipment is come, and you have
Oh,
a
that's a bunch of bullshit, man. That's a bunch of, just like when Jordan Maxwell said, just like when he said, when you're born, the reason they take your footprints is because they want to own your soul.
yeah.
I mean, give me a break, dude.
Hmm.
This is what they do. It's a bunch of bullcrap, right? I mean, so, anyways,
The weird thing is
I'm
with
just,
all the researchers, man, is that they have like the, you know what I'm saying, the little bit of stuff that you like and the stuff that you can agree with and the stuff that they can win you over on, and then they come with all the other crazy stuff. Like Jordan Maxwell has a lot of good stuff. The dude's been at it for a long time, but then he sneaks in. I caught a baby T-Rex in my backyard. Like he talks about when he was a kid.
because he's a nutball, man. He's a nut. Look, so everybody that I respect is dead.
Hmm. I say
So
everybody.
Manly
My
P.
dude,
Hall,
Manly,
Helena Blavatsky,
Manly P.
all these
Hall,
people,
man.
they're all dead. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He try.
Blavatsky.
Well, he tries to get in with their names and stuff, though. You know, they try to get in and say, "Oh yeah, well, you know, Manly P. Hall left me all of my, all of his work before he died," as if Manly P. Hall knew,
Oh, I
knew he
know.
was
I'm
about to
like,
die.
come on,
I
give
want
me
to
a
see
break.
it.
Like
If he
Manly P.
has,
Hall's.
yeah, let me see it. That's one of
Oh,
the
I mean, and
strange.
a lot of those guys that were that big like that, they ended up just kind of falling by the wayside because they really didn't have anything to offer except for this little magical spell they put on everybody for just a little minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So I learned that the best thing, my best teacher are old books. So I like to read a lot of old books, and I look at, right now at least, I look at a lot of geometry and a lot
Yeah, I seen that.
of the older, the pyramids and stuff like that.
What's
And that is a teacher actually in itself. The whole complex is a teacher if you know what you're looking for. But you
Yeah.
kind of have to find that one first thing on your own, and then you go, oh my God, somebody did this on purpose. And then you start digging a little bit more, and you go, oh my God, and you go, oh my, and it's the next thing you know, it turns into this whole, it turns into some huge thing. And so now I'm doing all kinds of research on
Yeah.
just the different ratios of the pyramid and PIDs and geometry and all kinds of stuff like that. So,
Well,
yeah.
talking about the pyramids, we understand that they're lined up with the three stars of Orion's belt, and I think the work that led me to you was the Horsehead Nebula being in the paintings from who was it? Was it Da
It's
Vinci?
the Orion Nebula, actually.
Okay,
Actually, it's the Orion Nebula. Is that there's the painting that you find with Michelangelo,
Michelangelo.
and in most of the other paintings. But those three pyramids being lined up to Orion is definitely one possibility. I think that there's other possibilities as well. As I've been studying this, the Orion Nebula doesn't lose its importance just because there's other possibilities. But I think that these things had multiple things that were happening at once. In other words, when they built these things to show you something, it wasn't to show you one thing. It was to show you many different things. For example, right? So you take a look at Khafre, which is the middle pyramid, right? And the middle pyramid has a side length that's very specific. And when you look at all this geometry, including Stonehenge and stuff like that, the side length of Khafre is in feet, the exact same number that you find when you take a look at the square root of 2. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything to you, right? But square root of 2 has a very specific number, and it has very unique qualities. And it's specifically related to a square, okay? So it's one of the only things that the only number that I know of that you can divide by 2. So if you take the square root of 2 and you divide it by 2, you get side length of Khafre, which is the 707.1067 feet, right? But take that and you divide that by 1,000. What you're really doing is you're turning the pyramids into ratio numbers rather than large numbers, right? So the Great Pyramid becomes 0.756 and Khafre becomes 0.7071067. So when you look at them like that, Now you're looking at them as ratios, which is what I think they're trying to show you. So it's the only number that so if you were to put a circle around that pyramid, if you're looking at it from above, and that circle, you put it around that pyramid, and the circle touches each corner of the pyramid. So that's actually the square root of 2 of Khafre, right? So if Khafre is 707.1067 feet, then that circle that surrounds it is 1,000 feet in diameter. And it's a very specific number that they're trying to show you. So a lot of this has to do with squaring the circle. It has to do with showing you, because the whole complex itself, when you look at it from above, which is also very interesting, because a long time ago you couldn't see this stuff from above, right? Mm-hmm. But from above is where you capture all this information. So I don't know what all that's about, right? Because that's when you start to see all the different relationships between these various things, is when you're looking at it from a satellite view.
Yeah.
Which I think is extremely interesting, right? That means that they designed it for somebody to look at it from above. And so the geometry of this stuff is so precise, not just on one pyramid, but all across the whole complex, from the corner of one pyramid all the way across the complex, 3,024 feet to the other side, which is like a mile and a half to the other side, right? Oh no, it's just like a mile or half a mile, what is? But to the other side, and the geometry is in like within a 2-foot range of accuracy, what they're trying to show, which I think is absolutely amazing. It's like if you were to put an architectural drawing on a piece of paper and look at it from above, they're so exact with that shit, all the way down to, 3,000 feet away, you're in a margin of error of like 2 feet. It's pretty amazing stuff. And so you realize that you're trying to teach you stuff, right? As well as Stonehenge and that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. But right now I'm crunching numbers, and a lot of people aren't really too interested in that. And
I've been on your timeline. It's just, like I said, totally blowing me away, man.
So I've had to go back to basically school on my own when it comes to math, and relearn a lot of this stuff, trigonometry and all this kind of stuff. I've been doing it but now I have a reason, and in school they just teach you this stuff, and you're like, what the hell is this? I couldn't stand math in school.
Yeah.
But now it's not about liking math or not liking it. It's like getting surprised with all these neat little things you start finding out if you know how to plug these certain things in a certain way, and it just becomes a tool, right, to figure out some huge puzzle. And I love it. But and then I've got my tool that I use here, which is this Inkscape. I don't know what I would do without Inkscape. It's free, and anybody can download it, but you can start putting in geometry and calculating things out, and you can look at exactly what you're trying to see visually, which is something I could never do when I was in school. I couldn't, they teach you something. They want you to memorize all these numbers and formulas. That did nothing for me. Mm-hmm. But if I can see it visually, I can see the geometry. That changes everything. So.
Well, I seen some of the work you were doing and showing, almost like I think it was a picture of Stonehenge, and it was like if you was to lay Metatron's cube right on top of it, it fits perfectly with all the points that are in Stonehenge, and even some of the things that are set up around it, some of the other things, right? So are they trying to, I don't know if that's how they build it, just using geometry, or are they trying to show us that there's power embedded within the symbols and stuff? And because I know,
but that power is not some special kind of, you don't think power is the knowledge of what's contained within inside those numbers. For example, why would they make Stonehenge 360 feet in diameter? 360, we see that in circles, right? Mm-hmm. We know the circle has 360 degrees, but why make it? You could have any circle the size, diameter be 360 degrees. Why choose one that's 360 feet in diameter as well? So when you start looking into that and you look at the size of these things that are inside of it, and you realize that the size of the things that are inside of it, things like 72 feet in diameter, 108 feet in diameter, things like that, and you start looking at those, you realize those are also angles. Those are angles of things of like stars, that stars have angle, or 5-pointed stars have angles of 36 and 144 degrees and stuff like that. So not only are they using the size, but they're also using the distance. And then you realize after a while that all these angles and stuff like that and these circles, the way that geometry works within itself, there's something special about the numbers, how you get from one to another. And that's kind of what you see. And that's the way kind of the universe is. I think that's what they were teaching and what they were probably also learning at the same time when they were doing that kind of stuff. They were testing things and trying to see if they were right about certain things. And I think the people that did the pyramids already figured all of it out.
Mm-hmm. So do you believe that, kind of like the feng shui and the way that we have things set up, it helps for the energy to kind of move and shift, in a space? Is that what Stonehenge is for, and the pyramid set up so energy can move and be conducted? And whether it was like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think so.
So you don't think they were into that at all? It was just how they were building their structures, or what?
I'm not saying that they were into that kind of stuff, but I don't think that they were into it just because of something magical. It's because they knew something, right? Mm-hmm. They knew something that made sense. It wasn't just because you place things a certain way and, lights come on everywhere and you see angels flying. It's not like that, right? It's like science is what it is. But it's the kind of science that we're not allowed to or are steered away from nowadays. And which is one of the reasons why I'm doing research behind this stuff, is because I've learned a lot of things that people have been taught that are wrong. Mm-hmm. And lately, I think this whole thing around pi, I think is wrong. And the more I discover, and the more these pyramids and what they're showing me, the more I know that it's correct, that it's wrong what they're showing us with all that. So. And then I started looking for how they're deriving pi and all that kind of stuff, and I realized how they got the numbers over the years. But if you go and try and look for that online and look for something in detail on how they just derive it, it's ridiculously complex and it doesn't make sense. And especially when you start taking a look at it in association with some of these ancient megaliths, you realize that these guys knew something that we've lost. And that's the reason why you see a lot of the old stuff like that. You see things that look like high technology that no longer exists. We're all baffled about how they did this, that, and the other, but that's as far as it goes, because nobody wants to admit that they were smarter than we are in a lot of ways. It would hurt our ego too much, I guess.
Yeah. So as far as like aligning with the stars, I mean, I know that, the ancients definitely venerated the stars, and they, tried to line up things with there, and they, believed in, I think if we look at the ancient writings, even with the Bible, just looking at it about astrology and symbology and stuff like that, what do you think the secret to Orion is? Like, what do you think it is? Do you think it is a stargate? Do you think it's a portal? I mean, what do you think is so special about Orion that the ancients knew that they hid it in all of their stuff? Or is it the geometry that was sacred to them, that's what they were hiding and everything? That sounds like what you're getting at now.
Well, what I'm doing right now is I am trying to go over in detail some of the stuff that I didn't do when I wasn't using a lot of the math and geometry and stuff like that I'm using now. And I know that the two connect, but I have to get into more detail on this before I can make the other connect. There's what you're asking for is extremely difficult to describe because it touches in areas that nobody has ever really thought of. And so therefore, to explain it, it's like trying to explain the color blue to a blind person. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. And and I've spoken to a couple of master Kabbalists about this as well. But there is this old saying, and you find it in the Emerald Tablet, not tablets, which everybody keeps bringing up all the time because there's only one. There's only one Emerald Tablet. And so it describes things like, if you take a look at the as above, so below thing, and people don't really understand what that means. You hear them quoted all the time, but they don't really think about it. As above, so below has something to do with the way things are constructed in the universe, both physically and mentally. I'm not talking about just physically. So for example, say you take your body and you were to magnify it 1 million times, right? To where now your body doesn't look like your body, but it looks like a whole different universe containing other things, right? But you would find that there would be a similarity between your body or this universe that we're in versus the universe that exists inside of your body after magnifying it by 1 million times. There's some kind of a correlation or a similarity there. There's also a correlation and a similarity in the way that thought transpires. And this gets into Plato's archetypes and things like that, the world of forms. There's this world that exists that has the perfect whatever of everything. And so when we kind of think about things like the Orion Nebula, and if you look at all of the ancient Hindu texts and stuff like that, as it describes kind of the descent. So think about this for a second. So everything has to come from one thing, and that includes everything. That includes, like, even the Christians, they say, oh, no, well, Satan can't come from. No, that's not true. That's kind of what the tetractys is. That thing looks like 10 little dots, right?
Yeah.
Well, that top dot represents everything in unity. It represents the starting point, everything, right? And that unity starts branching out, and it starts branching into polarity, and then just like a tree, how a tree grows, right? And it starts from one point, it grows out, and now it's everything. It's the whole universe. So it actually becomes everything. But everything is also it at the same time. It's just that everything is not aware of everything else. One branch is not aware of another branch, right?
Yeah.
And they're not aware of the branches until they kind of come together at a higher level, and then all of a sudden they realize that they were all just one branch, right?
The flower of life.
And it's kind of the way the universe is. So the way it describes it in these ancient texts are things move from a point of invisibility. And when I say invisibility, it would kind of almost mean something that's spiritual. When I say spiritual, I don't mean the same thing that you would think of when you're thinking about the Bible. Spiritual is the spirit world or whatever is kind of the world that exists before the physical world. So for example, if you want to create something in life, you don't just sit down and create it without something going through your head first, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think about what it is you want to do, and then that turns into analysis, which means the motion that happens. And then that motion turns into you using your physical body to create whatever you want to create in the physical world. But it didn't start in the physical world. It started in your thought process. And so the universe, according to these guys, exists the same way. So the Orion Nebula exists as a point of creation where the invisible or spiritual world breaks into the physical. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's very possible that it represents the starting point of our branch of the universe. So we're whatever we are at those higher levels as we come through that, and the physical, the Earth, solar systems, everything that came from that. It seems to me that with what I see in older art, and the Kabbalists and I agree on this, and that is sometimes that happens and it comes out in art, but it's unconscious, and they don't realize that it's happening. And this has to do with some stuff from the other philosopher, Carl Jung, which talks about the collective unconscious, which has to do with these archetypes and things like that, that it's embedded in everybody, but they're just not aware of it. But you see it come out in things like art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Michelangelo obviously was extremely connected. He painted it in such detail. I could zoom in on it graphically with measurements, and I could show bits and pieces all over his painting of that creation of Adam how it was indeed. I mean, I was even looking for software that would do it for me, that would show it to me, because people just, they're like, no, that can't be possible. That's as far as they go. They don't want to think about it anymore. But and that's fine. I don't expect these people to be able to do that. But the people that will do it are the ones that matter, and that's all that matters to me. So
yeah, kind of going above and beyond of just, like I said, taking somebody's word for it, somebody that's actually doing the research and taking it to a whole nother level of what you're doing, and kind of tying some of the points together, man. I know pi and some of the and some of the different geometry is something near and dear to many of the people who are high levels of Freemasonry when we're talking about pi and
that's
talking
correct.
about this complex geometry as well. So if this is what people, like, what I'm saying, people are looking for it, but you got to dig, and so you're actually digging and doing the work, man. I wonder.
I'm digging, and I really don't care what they're doing either, right? So
Yeah, but are you
whatever they're doing is great.
Are you in touch with any Masons? Have you had anybody who is open to talk to you to kind of roll some of this work and ideas off of you, or are you just kind of doing it by yourself and just kind of go?
I have some Freemason friends, but from what I've been told, I know
more than them.
and this is what I've been told. I have no idea whether this is true or not, but they've told me that I know more than about 90 to 95% of it. I'm sure there's just a very few at the very top who know. But most of them that get into Freemasonry. Yeah, most of them that get in there, they just care about
camaraderie,
badges, and stuff like that. It's only a very few.
I've got some friends who joined thinking that they were going to get into the deep mysteries and knowledge, and it's not what they expected. It's kind of insane.
No.
But yeah, we got some phone calls here. If anybody would like to call in and ask Danny a question or add to the conversation, you can do so. The number is scrolling across the top of the screen. It's also in all of the descriptions of the video, everywhere it's listed. So give us a call, and it'll show me that you're in queue, and we'll take your questions and comments for Danny Wilten. So we'll go to the first caller. I believe this is Donaldson. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's up? That's amazing timing you have there, sir.
With what?
Because
amazing what?
Well, I mean, Joe, just good timing. With I was having a discussion with two people about rock climbing, and then I came right back to the call, and as I came back, I was being unmuted. So that was some interesting timing. Yeah.
That's how it works, brother.
I want you, if you want to talk about synchronicity, right? Then that's probably giving emphasis and support to the underlying theme of the call. I really have been moving and shaking, as you would be too, if you were recognizing yourself as being on the leading edge of thought. That's how I see myself. And it's a very, very uplifting place to live too. Who wouldn't want to feel good all the time?
Oh yeah.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Is there a question that you had?
What's that?
Do you have a question or a comment for Danny Wilten about any of this work we're talking about?
Well, I barely, to be honest with you, barely chimed in, and then as I chimed in, I was paying attention. Then I got distracted. Some people were climbing up the side of a building, and it was like a rock climbing adventure, and I had to administer first aid. So.
Oh wow.
I was.
Oh, so you kind of been distracted, huh?
Yeah, just for a moment. Yeah. So what? I mean, if I could get one sentence to describe the theme of the call, and I'll ask a question based on that one sentence. I already know that it's about spiritual awareness in our modern times. Okay, so I mean, what is the guest tonight particularly on about?
Well, we've kind of titled the show "The Mystery of the Orion Nebula." So anything concerning spirituality, concerning the alignment, positioning with the pyramids and things like that, especially when it has to do with geometry. That's kind of what we're talking about tonight.
I would redefine that a little bit more and say that the show is really about exploring things that might have been lost as far as knowledge that the ancients had a long time ago. And work goes into areas where modern science refuses to go because it kind of borderlines religious beliefs, and religion refuses to go because it challenges whatever views that they have, whether it be it doesn't work with their particular religion, which we say all the time, or they believe it to be satanic, or whatever reason. So you kind of in the middle of both worlds, right? It's more of a philosophical world. So I would call it more of a philosophical type discussion.
Right. And you know philosophers, we need them. Without philosophy, we're lost. Okay. Here's one. You mentioned religion, and I'll just mention two other words here. Civil religion. Okay. And about, I'd say probably 7 to almost 8 years ago, I had an awakening moment where I saw a connection between spirituality and the law, the legal profession. Okay, and that this here's a sentence from an article, the Law Review, Fordham Law Review. Okay, it's 68407 Fordham Law Review. It says, ultimately, the balance one strikes between judge and jury may depend upon whether one thinks of law as social engineering or a civil religion. And there's other areas that I could sit here and touch on as well that would highlight the point here undertaken, and not to the detriment of the group, but actually to the benefit. Okay, simply because everyone has their individual talents. And as we actually come to terms with who we are, right, those talents become extremely emphasized. You'll especially if there's a process that you follow, of a natural process of releasing from the attachment to things. Okay, so
what does that mean? The attachment to things.
Well, it's a mental release.
Why is it not okay to be attached to something good?
Well, hear me out. I think you might get I'm not saying it's not okay for that. What I am saying, though, is that being bound by ideas about ourselves that may be misleading can be detrimental to our authentic desire. Sometimes
who gets to decide what that is, though?
Exactly, you do.
Well, then it's all subjective, right? So I mean, you can recommend that, but everyone's still going to have their own point of view about themselves. So you really haven't gotten anywhere. All you really done is just tell people that be careful what you think about, but everyone's going to think about what they're going to think about.
Have you ever said the words authentic desire before? When did you last hear those words or say the word authentic desire? What is that?
I say things. What does that mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that could mean a lot of different things depending on the thing I'm talking about. An authentic desire for what?
Authentic. I said authentic desire.
Uh-huh.
What is your authentic desire? Is it really to...
I'll tell you what. You tell me what yours is so I know where you're coming from, and then I'll tell you what mine is.
Well, hold on. Let's get back to the chat room here. Your call is The Awakening with Truth Seeker, right?
Yes.
Is that your call?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So when I speak of of subject matter along the lines of inner awareness and inner awakening, I think we have consensus that this subject matter is in harmony, and we have, with the core theme of the call. Do we have consensus about that?
What do you think, Derek?
I don't know. We'll have to come back to you, Donaldson. I didn't know where he was going, man. I tried to let him share, man.
It's all good.
Yeah. Nah, he's a good guy, man. I
know. So good.
I figured you thought I may be trolling you with a
Just remember,
guest.
you're talking to an analyst, so I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go down the road of all this.
Yeah,
pie in
well,
the
just
sky
kind of getting us
stuff.
off of the subject matter. Hadn't been listening, so if you go back and listen
I hear you,
to
brother.
the show, man,
So
check us
good.
out, and you can be, ask a question accordingly. I guess he just blindsided. Hey, let me think of a question. Anyway,
It's all good.
yeah, it happens, man. He actually called into to the Santos episode. He's a big fan of Santos, so I figured why not bring him on?
Oh, okay.
Maybe he'll kind of be a fan of your work if he's never heard of you. But yeah, we're talking to Danny Wilten, who is our guest tonight. Here for a few more minutes, Danny. Is there anything that we didn't touch on, that we didn't go into, that you wanted to talk about before we got off of here?
Well, I just want to say basically that there's a lot of people out there that are doing research and stuff. There's a lot of people out there that are, that worry about how popular that they are, or they worry about, do I have enough subscribers, or this kind of stuff. That's not the reason you should be doing whatever it is that you're doing. So if you've got all that as the first thought in your head, then you're not going to learn whatever it is you're trying to learn, because the only thing you're caring about is how many subscribers you've got and stuff like that. So it's one of the reasons why, I have a job and stuff like that, so that I can do this and I don't have to worry about what anybody thinks or cares about and stuff like that. So, and I can stay focused. So as far as the research that I'm doing right now, I would suspect that there's a lot of people that my audience is probably going to change a little bit, because I'm digging more into the mathematical stuff and less into the artistic stuff.
Yeah.
And with that comes a change of audience. People that don't like math are just eyes are gonna blur. But I didn't like math either until I could see it visually. So
well, you're doing a good job of that too. I mean, those are the things that kind of kind of stood out to me, was when you incorporated the the pictures that went around.
Well, that's
with
what
it
an analyst
versus
does.
just the numbers.
Right. I mean, when I design software, that's what I do. I put it on. I don't just do things with stuff with math and stuff like that that's written. I make diagrams and I show you the way things are going to look, and I do this, that, and that's what I'm kind of trying to take into all of this, because I have to explain it to people in the business world that don't understand software. I have to explain it to business people, and so I'm using the public to kind of take things that are hard to understand and try to interpret it for them in the process. And what actually happens is I end up learning it better because of that. So it's good for me as well.
Yep. It's peering into a whole nother level. I think you're taking it deeper than a lot of people are willing to go. And then, like you said, you're able to kind of follow the research and not really care who stays or who follows or who's for it. Those people come and go as they will, and wherever your heart leads you, wherever the information leads you, and obviously that's where it's led you, and you're coming out with some good interpretations from it and some really deep information. And like I said, keep doing the diagram stuff too with it, because that's what keeps the people like me. When I get people on here, man, especially with you, that stuff's over my head, right? So we try to get on here and we try to break it down in a way that, the average layperson can understand it. I've had a lot of, biblical scholars.
I can explain more with one picture. I can explain more with one picture than I could sit here for an hour or two trying to talk about it on the phone. Let me tell you.
No. Yeah.
Like just with one die. If I had to describe some of this geometry stuff that I'm doing,
you couldn't do it over
on the phone. Could you imagine how hard that would be?
Yeah.
So that's the reason I like to use a lot of diagrams.
It works, man. It works having that. Like you said, just doing the math and them just telling you how to do it, and then doing the numbers and crunching the numbers, versus having, this picture or this visualization of it that almost encouraged you to stay tuned, because most people are visual learners. They have to see it in front of them, or and so with you,
I do. I can't. I have to see it myself. I'm the same way.
yeah. I mean, it kind of helps for me because I have a good imagination. When somebody's explaining something, I can kind of see it, but it helps so much when you have a frame of reference as well. So when you're presenting that with your work, we got another call. Before we hang off of here, I'll go ahead and jump to this
All right.
next call. This is Clarissa. Hey, Clarissa, you got a question for Danny? Clarissa C. All right. Probably just listening. A lot of people call up and listen, and you put them on.
I didn't know there was a chat room.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple of them. There's a couple chat rooms. There's one on YouTube that's going live on YouTube, and then the one on TalkShoe. So we're streaming live on both of those. So are you still there, Danny?
Prizes, right? You start seeing these same numbers popping up all the time, and then you start seeing how the same numbers pop up in Giza complex and stuff like that. And there are all these little surprises, and that's kind of what keeps me going. If I didn't get any of those, I probably would put it down. But I'm always getting these little surprises all the time, and it's forced me to go back and learn how to do some things. But whatever it is I'm learning how to do, that I didn't remember how to do in math is sticking this time because now I have a reason. So, but anyways, I'm loving what I'm doing right now, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm reading in the comment section. Somebody was saying to mute the guy who called in, that he calls into a lot of shows just trolling. Couldn't tell. I couldn't tell whenever I had Santos on, he was up to speed with Santos's work. So I don't know if he's a troll or not. So I didn't understand. So.
Well, I don't know. I just wanted to keep the conversation on the phone.
You have to.
Useful for people, that are that are listening and everything. And he was going off on some weird tangent. I just had no idea what he was talking about. So I had to call him on some of it. That's all.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Who knows? We might never find out. So, anyway, Danny, I appreciate you coming on finally to hang out with me for a little while, man. Talk about it, catch up. It's always fun. Maybe Brother Wayne will do another video on you, bro. Who knows?
Right. Tell Brother Wayne I said hi, but I am going to show up in the church, but this time I'm stealing the wafers and wine.
That's what's up, brother. All right, man. You have a good night, bro. Thanks for hanging out.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Peace, peace. Danny Wilten, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, the first show that I did back, I think it was 2012, 2013. Danny Wilten was my first guest, and we went into it about Orion Nebula, having linked with all of these paintings, the Michelangelo painting, and just like all my research that I've seen. And one of the big ones, Ellen G. White from the Seventh-day Adventists, she had this open vision of seeing these angels traveling back and forth to Orion, from Orion back and forth to Earth. So these angels were traveling back and forth from heaven to Earth through Orion. And then science is putting out some stuff about the Orion Nebula is creating stars, and things are coming out of the Orion Horsehead Nebula, and stuff is forming out of there. And we understand that, like, a lot of religions, a lot of texts talk about Orion being where everything is formed, where the horse, where is the seat of all creation, that everything comes out of this Stargate or something like that, right? Many biblical scholars believe that the New Jerusalem, which will descend from heaven upon the earth in the reign of Christ, will come out of Orion's Nebula as well. And then it leads me to an experience I had where I seen these either entities or starships or something, these huge lights in the sky posing as stars. When I seen them and noticed that they weren't the stars that they were posing as, they lit up really bright and they flew into the Orion Nebula, into pretty much into the belt of Orion. It was awesome. Blew my mind. They were just sitting there posing as stars, and then they lit up and they flew into the Stargate. So a lot of my work, a lot of my research is formed around Orion, and then I think it's awesome. I think it's beautiful to read the scriptures and see that Orion's mentioned throughout the scriptures as well. Orion is mentioned of in the book of Job, which is like the oldest book of the Bible, and it talks about Orion. It talks about the Pleiades, the seven sisters, the seven stars. It talks about the bear, and when we talk about the seven stars, which is the Pleiades or the seven sisters, it says as well. It talks about in Revelation that Jesus is the one who holds the seven stars in his hand. And so all of this stuff starts to make sense, and everything starts to connect when we're talking about astrology and astronomy in the Bible and how it has a huge significance. And even where God tells his people to follow the signs in the heavens. And Jesus says to continue to watch the skies. And the word skies is the same word as heaven. So all of this stuff just starts to connect when we do the proper research, whether we're reading it from a Christian perspective or, you know what I'm saying? All the other holy books talk about this stuff, man. It's crazy. It's old. Like Job is the oldest book in the scriptures, and it's given reference and naming Orion, the Orion Stargate. It's deep, man. So anyway, this is the end of the show, and I just want to let you guys know that if you all want to join the hangout, that we're doing the first Patreon hangout after this episode. Check your email, and if you're not a member yet, go to patreon.com/truthseeker. Sign up at any level, and as soon as you sign up, I will send the email out where you guys can join the chat, and we can hang out for a little bit, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Just hang out, do whatever you guys want. So we'll be available here after the show for about an hour or so. So head on over to patreon.com/truthseeker, and like I said, you also get rewards and all kind of stuff.
So much higher than mine. So much higher than mine. So much deeper than mine. So much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/truthseeker.